Hey everybody, welcome back to the Ohioan podcast. Craig Shoup here with George Thomas, our Akron Beacon Journal film critic. George is here, and boy, I tell you what, we're talking about one of the big ones of the year, Avatar: The Way of Water. Maybe not just because it's a highly anticipated release, but also 3 hours and 12 minutes for the runtime here for James Cameron's follow-up to the massive success of the 2009 Avatar. It's been 13 years, George. It's a runtime of 3 hours and 12 minutes. Does James Cameron still have the magic in him?
Well, let me ask you this first
Sure.
before we get. Does it not feel like the entire box office year hinges on whether this thing is a success or not?
Well, it does, and it also feels like the entire box office combination hinges on whether or not this movie breaks even. Apparently, it needs to make what, $2
Two
billion
billion.
to break even. Holy crap! Is that going to happen? Do you think this movie is going to make $2 billion?
I don't know. Would the first Avatar make? It's close to that.
It was close. It
All
was
right.
close. Yeah.
What's the first rule of sequels or series?
Well, they better be different. They better
No.
progress, move the forward. Oh,
It's the same thing, only different.
yeah.
That and this qualifies. I saw the original Avatar 3 times, and I'm not going to bore anybody with plot
Hmm.
because even that one was thin
Yep.
on plot once it got past its explanation.
Yeah.
Um, it's the same thing, only different, only in the waters.
Okay.
Now we're gonna give James Cameron all the props in the world for immersing us in something that's totally, completely made up.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's a
Right.
marvel of filmmaking. It's genius. The problem is with James Cameron films, and I don't want to put all of them in this on that level because there are several that aren't like this. It's great on the effects,
Right.
and they can be thin on storytelling, plot, and character development.
Right.
And without the emotional investment in some of his movies, and I felt this way about Avatar, even though I saw it 3 times.
Yeah.
It's like there was no real emotion. I'm a guy who cries at the right movie. You know what I mean?
Okay.
There
Yeah.
there there is no emotional emotional weight to a lot of his movies.
Right.
Um, his best movie, still to this day, I will argue, is The Terminator.
Right.
And I think that was his first or second movie. T2 is
Yeah.
a very close second.
Right.
Complex storytelling, compelling characters, and for them being action films, the emotion was there. Um, Titanic, everybody knew how that was going to end.
Well, apparently some people didn't. I don't know if you've ever seen that Bill Hader interview where he used to be a ticket taker at a movie theater, and he spoiled the movies for a bunch of young, snarky girls. And he ended up getting fired for it, he said, because he spoiled the movie. And it's like, yeah, but, I mean, I guess maybe talking about Leo DiCaprio dying is different than just saying the ship sinks, so on and so forth. But whatever. So yeah, I mean, that was sort of an event film, sort of a ready-made. I don't know. I mean, at the time, I was 13, but at the time, did you expect that movie to be this huge box office success that of Titanic?
You know what's weird? Um, and that's back when I was doing junkets, and they did no junket for that movie.
Okay.
They offered second week interviews, and I got an interview with Cameron. And when you saw the box office go up the second week,
right?
And it's like, and you and I both know because you've been paying attention to this stuff a long time, and I certainly have. When box office goes up in week 2, you start to take note.
Yeah.
So my eyebrow raised, and it's like, we'll see what happens. And then all of a sudden, let's be real, the Teeny Bopper Girls got a hold of it, and
Right.
boom.
They saw it 15 times, and that's really, you could make the argument that getting that young female, teen to adult female box office is really the key to some success. Avatar, the original Avatar, was sort of that way where it had a nice opening weekend, but it just kept going and going and going on its way to that whatever 1.8 billion or whatever it was.
Look,
it just had it was not stopping. I mean, it was well into 2010 when it was still kind of, making some sales at the box office.
2 of the times I saw it, it was to kill time. I was covering the Cavs full time. I was traveling to cover the Cavs
right
full time. And you get in some of those cities and you're by yourself. It's like you don't want to sit in a hotel room. So
right.
Theater nearby. In Oakland, there was a theater within 5 minutes of me walking distance. So
okay.
I went to go see it. And this was Marchish, April, and people were still, the theater was full.
Yeah.
People were still enraptured by this thing. And I'm like,
right.
And it was during that screening of it, it's like, okay, I was enthralled by it the first time I saw it.
Yeah, I was too.
The second or third screening, it's like, wait a second.
Yeah.
This is a bit threadbare plot-wise, and maybe it caused me to go into this one with a healthy dose of skepticism, plus looking at that runtime.
Right.
Who the hell? 3 hours and 12 minutes.
Yeah. I gave it a modest box office haul. The first Avatar movie, now I'm assuming it's re-releases and all that stuff is added up. But looking at Box Office Mojo, 2.9 billion overall. And that includes a 2.1 billion international take. That's huge. Big international box office right there. That is big.
Yeah, and if it gets China, he's got a shot at it. I'm not sure if it's opening in China. Like I said, it's the same, only different. And I'm sorry, I haven't really latched on to the characters in this series. And there are going to be 3 more films, I think.
Yeah.
He's got them spaced out to 27.
Yeah. Is it better, do you think? I mean, I kind of worried about this 13-year hiatus because there was a huge box office take in that first film. And I thought to myself, this is the time to capitalize, get the sequels. But then it was like, well, Cameron's not going to make a sequel every 2 or 3 years to begin.
Not his style.
It's not his style. He wanted to wait for additional technology to catch up to his vision. And so we get 13 years later. Do you feel like this is a big risk, I think, because it could pay off with a big box office boom, but it could also maybe not make its money back. And then, oh, by the way, you've also got him shooting 3 more back to back to back, and then they're coming out every couple of years.
Well, history taught him to take the risk. You want to know why?
Why?
Nobody expected the Terminator to do anything.
True. Yeah.
Terminator showed up in 1984, I want to say. Terminator 2 showed up in the summer of 92.
Yeah.
That's 8 years. So obviously his history, I'm not saying anybody else's, but his history taught him that, I can do this. I can pull this off.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the box office figures, and this is just incredible. This movie made $10,511 on one screen on August 6th through 8th in the theater. That would have been August of 2010. We're talking 9 months after the initial release theatrically. That they were still making some money at the box office. That's incredible. I mean, look, I think, Cameron is probably established himself enough that he can do whatever he wants, and maybe this movie will make the money back, maybe it won't. Maybe the subsequent theatrical releases of the sequels will or won't. But I guess I can understand why you take a risk, because it's James Cameron, and if he says, hey, I've got the passion to make multiple movies here in the next 5, 6, 7 years, why would you say no? Because he's box office gold usually.
No, that's why you build the entire parks in Disney World,
right,
devoted to this subject matter. And I mean, Disney doesn't make those kind of investments unless they think they have a reasonable bet,
right,
period. And I'd rather he get on to mastering The Abyss in 4K so I can part with my DVD.
Right. I've heard maybe if The Abyss will come out this 2023 on 4K, so you might be in luck.
No, he said by March. We'll see.
Okay, we'll see. Well, I mean, I guess a lot of it depends on how further along he is on these sequels. Obviously, shooting them back to back to back, sort of like Lord of the Rings style, will allow them to get some of that principal photography done, and then they can always go back in, reshoot if they need to. But then, at that point, you're just, I almost wonder too, if he's like, waiting a year to get into post-production and maybe utilize better technology in a year from now or 2 years from now, instead of like, well, I can just do this all right now, but I don't want to, because 2 years from now, we're going to have something cooler than what we have now technology wise.
Because I'm a noted tinkerer. Yeah. I like my toys.
Yep.
Just give us the movies and be done with it.
Well, ultimately, obviously I figured The Way of Water would be a little light. And this is more of the why you go to movies kind of movies. This is the visceral experience on the big screen. Now, did you see this in IMAX or 3D or anything, or do you have a standard?
Now, people may want to look this up to confirm it on their own. In a conversation with somebody, I heard that it's only showing in 3D.
Okay.
So he's bringing back he's bringing back 3D for this. How accurate that is, I don't know. So check it out yourself. But I saw it in 3D, and it's mind blowing. It really is.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was usually not a big fan of 3D, and then saw Avatar in 3D, and I thought it really sort of captured what 3D can be. I think the closest in sort of the modern times, because again, I don't really see a lot of 3D movies, was probably like Ready Player One. I thought was a good looking 3D film, but yeah, Avatar really kind of took the cake for me when I saw it in 2009 in 3D.
Did you ever see Hugo?
I did see Hugo, but I don't think I saw that in 3D though.
That one would blow your mind in 3D. Okay. It really would.
I remember seeing Up in 3D, but then I also saw it in 2D, and I thought, man, this is such a colorful, vibrant movie that being in 3D with those glasses, it kind of darkens it and just kind of loses some of that color pop that comes off the screen.
Now, and the thing is, this is exactly the opposite.
Right.
It really does. I mean,
yeah, I'm actually hoping, because we're not too far away from a Dolby Cinema theater. I'm actually kind of gunning for a Dolby Cinema 3D, which I can only imagine what that could be like after seeing the Batman earlier this year in Dolby Cinema. Getting that just amazing sound, Atmos sound, beautiful, just crispy clear color palette that the Avatar is known for. So I'm excited. That's probably the one time that I would really splurge on a movie ticket. and we'll probably be doing that at some point.
Let's make it clear. I gave the movie a B.
Yeah.
Make it clear. I'm not trying to discourage anyone from going. Just know that cinematically speaking, the visual part of this is very much innovative. It's a masterpiece.
Right.
The storytelling, a little bit lacking. So
right. Yeah. Okay. Yep. Well, and I know that Avatar, it may be transitioning here to our next topic. It'll appear on some, awards lists. I think a lot of it might have to do with the fact that if Avatar is on your award show, you might get some eyeballs, and, kudos to the Golden Globes for getting in on that right away. I know that we've talked about this in the past. We don't really care too much for the Golden Globes, but I know that you were maybe intrigued by some of the end of the year awards that have been doled out. And I did want to ask you about this year, but I'm going to let you get in on what you wanted to talk about. But I did want to follow up with you on on a question that I had for you.
Did you notice that the Globes were basically frozen out with respect to coverage?
Yeah, it seemed like it wasn't like everybody was posting something about the Globes. Yeah,
very muted coverage.
Yeah,
so they still have an image problem. That's what I wanted to get to.
Okay, yeah.
So, but they'll be back next month. I probably won't watch it. They'll probably try and throw their party again. And in the interest of full disclosure, that's where the organization that I belong to, whose awards were announced this week, the nominations were announced this week, they tried to fill that Golden Globe gap with that party atmosphere, the Critics' Choice Association Award. Right. So, it looks like we're setting up a year where everything, everywhere at once, The Fabelmans and Banshees of
Inisherin.
Yeah, you had problems with it too.
I've heard it pronounced Inisherin on trailers. So that is the only reason why I understand how to pronounce the title.
Yeah, it looks like what's setting up is that those three films. I mean, you can mention Abyss, and I heard people read people writing that the Abyss, that the Avatar was going to throw a wrench into the year-end awards race, and I'm like, after seeing it, I'm like, what?
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you and kind of further this conversation, because here we are. We're at the end of the year. I know there's, most people would probably say, well, you've got Damien Chazelle's Babylon that is still set to premiere next week. That obviously Chazelle has been a well-regarded, highly regarded filmmaker early on in his career, and most people would have expected that movie to kind of enter the conversation. Now, I don't know what kind of early reception they've had from maybe film festivals or just advanced screenings, but it doesn't look like it's getting a lot of early buzz, though. I mean, what are you hearing about that, or do you feel like those three movies you referenced are the three front runners?
They're probably, based on buzz, the three I mentioned are probably the front runners. Now, Babylon, I have to watch. Yeah. I've got a screener of it, so I'm going to watch it probably this weekend. I like Damien Chazelle. Yep. I like his films. I love La La Land.
I love La La Land too.
I loved his, what is it, Man in the Moon?
First Man.
Earthman. I'm one of the few who actually loved that movie.
Yeah.
And I'm a fan of his work, so we'll see what he's got there. But it's been a mixed bag on Babylon. It really has.
Right.
I mean, think about it. We're in a year where I think it was a critics organization out of New York gave Top Gun movie of the year. That's the type, or best film of the year. That's the type of environment we're in right now.
And that's what I wanted to ask you, because it doesn't seem like there is that, even on years where there hasn't been a lot of clarity by now, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of clarity right now, because you could make the argument, well, no one saw the Fabelmans, or hardly any people saw the Banshees of Inisherin, or yeah, people liked Everywhere All at Once. I don't want to, and people liked it, but then it's kind of like, well, is it just riding the wave of popularity in a year where maybe there isn't a lot of standouts? And Top Gun is another one of those where, and I'm not saying that no one liked it, because I know you enjoyed it very much, but we're not seeing that, like, someone step up to the plate here in the Oscar season and really take the reins of that Best Picture.
I think that in that regard, the only entities to blame are the studios, because my guess is they were cautious because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
I mean, I read somewhere that the number of releases is down like 30% over pre-pandemic.
Okay. Right.
You and I we've both talked about this. It's supposed to ramp up again next year, and I think that's playing into this. The fact that there have been fewer releases, and even with fewer releases, you're going to get fewer buzzworthy releases. And I mean, there was buzz around Everything Everywhere at Once. Top Gun got the populace buzz.
Right.
And there were plenty of critics who loved it, but had you told me that somebody would put it on its best movies, make it its best movie of the year, I would have thought you were smoking something.
Yeah, especially a New York Film Critic Association, which normally, not that they're highbrow, but normally would go for something
more highbrow.
Highbrow. Let's face it.
So, it's just a quirk of where we are at the moment. And hopefully it changes next year, because I'll be honest with you, a lot of stuff that I've got access to right now, I've shrugged my shoulders on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this weekend I'll check out Banshee and I'll check out Babylon, out of obligation than anything else.
Sure. Yeah, well, and I do appreciate HBO Max actually right now has the Banshees of Inisherin, so I wonder if that's sort of an early play to try to get some buzz around it, because there's an opening right now, and it sort of reminds me of, like, The Shape of Water, that I really didn't believe that it should have been a Best Picture. I don't think it certainly isn't Del Toro's best film. But I think in a year where no one really kind of stepped up to the plate, it was able to kind of, just sneak its way in there, and I think that's part of the problem, that right now, I mean, look, I mean, we've talked, you've had glowing recommendations for movies like The Fabelmans and other films, but again, The Fabelmans, just no one saw it, and it's just gotten pushed to the outside, because no one really seems to be backing it, because no one saw it.
I mean, ask yourself this: will the Academy be able to have 10 Best Picture nominees?
I don't think so. I think if they do, they're wrong. I don't know that this year is the year to do that, when you want to fill out the ranks, and you're wearing the shirt right now of the Batman, you're wearing that merch, and the Batman was a fine comic book superhero. It was a fine movie, but I don't know that they should dilute the Best Picture race with 10, or maybe in some ways even more than 5 at this point, because I mean, I'm sure that you could make the argument for more than 5, but can you make the argument for more than 5 or up to 10?
I'm just as a guide, I'm looking at the AFI list right now, and they're like, Elvis is on there. I like Elvis. I'm not thinking of Elvis as a Best Picture.
It's exactly.
Nope is on there. Same thing. I like Tar. Okay, maybe. The Woman King, great performances, Best Picture, no. I mean, it just seems like everything's a bit of a reach right now.
Mm-hmm.
most of these films are a bit of a reach. And mind you, Elvis, I freaking loved the performances.
Right.
I really did. I loved the stage musical performances, especially. But best pill making a top 10? Nah, I know.
Yeah.
And I could see the Academy doing that because it's been a threadbare year. So that's it in a nutshell. We'll see what happens.
I did have a chance to check. I'm not sure if you have, but I did check out Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio over the weekend. Have you seen it yet?
I got it, but I no.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It certainly isn't like Pan's Labyrinth level Del Toro, but I really think it's better than like The Shape of Water. It's a very, they take some chances in telling a little grim, dark Pinocchio story, and he sets it against the back wall of the 1930s 1940s fascist Italy, with Mussolini being a primary character in there. But um it's beautifully rendered in animation and puppet, and just this gorgeous art direction and emotion that comes from the characters, even though they're not real. Just a very fun. I don't say fun in a fun way, just a very well crafted Del Toro film. Kind of reminds you of a little bit of Pan's Labyrinth, where he sets sort of this fantasy against the you know the tortures of actual realism. So definitely worth checking out, I think. But obviously, I don't think it's a Best Picture category type of movie, even though in this year it could certainly win Best Animated Feature. Although I think Turning Red might sneak that through possibly. But in a normal year, I don't think you would ever think of Del Toro's movie as being a Best Picture as well. I mean, even in a bad year, I don't think it's good enough for a Best Picture. That's just kind of how the year has gone, even though it's a really solid film.
I will have to let you know on that one. But
I'm
see,
interested to see what you think about it, because I mean, I got swept away in sort of this grim, dreary retelling of Pinocchio, where it's definitely not like the 1940s Pinocchio,
or that thing
but
Disney Plus put out.
and of course the live action movie as well. But then there was also, I think it was like 2018 or 2019 or something, maybe even 2020, where there was actually an Italian version of Pinocchio. So it actually was an Italian only version, not really something that would be sent out into the American theaters. But this is, Del Toro's Pinocchio, I think, is probably the best of the bunch. And certainly holds a little bit of a candle, I think, even to the 1940s movie. It just is a different take on it. It's some of it hits really well, and some of it might be a little stretch, but for the most part, it's a very engrossing film. And I think he does a nice job of kind of putting out some of these themes of just belonging and relationships and grief. And I think he does a pretty good job with this. It was I was a little skeptical especially after the Tom Hanks bomb, but knowing that it'd be a lot darker, and Del Toro would put his signature on it. But I will say that if we can not get any more Pinocchio movies for the next 5-10 years, I'd be okay with that. I'd be okay.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Well, anything else that you're watching before we get to a very special part of the show that we've been teasing for the last couple of weeks? Anything that you've been watching?
It's been a lot of television lately. I'll be honest with you. I didn't have review access for Wednesday.
What did you think of it? Because I know that you watched it, because I saw your wife's Facebook post on it that you guys were watching, and I told her that I enjoyed it, and I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
We're up to episode 7, and you know
Okay.
what? It's some of it is vintage Tim Burton.
Yeah.
Just quirky, dark,
Mm-hmm.
and they in the episodes they drill in this theme of outcasts,
Yes, they do. Yes. Yeah.
and it's like you think of some of the stuff that Tim Burton has created over the years, and it fits perfectly
It does.
in his comfort zone, I guess is the best. And I'm enjoying it. I'm kind of shocked because I hadn't planned on watching it.
Yeah.
We what was it, Monday, Tuesday? We were just looking for something to watch. We were actually scanning through Netflix. She mentioned it. I'm like, okay, I'll give it a shot. And after that first episode, I was hooked.
Yeah, I mean, we really liked it. It was funny. I'm not an Addams Family person. I don't really care for the Addams Family movies or anything. But my wife was watching it one day, and I was like, "Oh, is this any good?" And she's like, "Yeah, I like it." And I'm like, "Well, stop watching it, and we'll restart, and we'll watch it together." And we did, and we sort of binged the 8 episodes probably in like a 2 or a 3 day span, and really enjoyed it. Jenna Ortega's fantastic, I think, as Wednesday. I think she really knocks it out of the park. And like you said, it's sort of a lot of vintage Tim Burton. It's got some fun supernatural things about it, and it's kind of a Frankenstein mashup monster movie, and it's probably tonally a little all over the place, but it's sort of in a good Tim Burton way, though, if you will. It's a little tonally misguided, but that's fun. That's kind of the fun about it too, though, I think.
It references this show more than a few times, if I'm not mistaken, but it's got a Scooby-Doo tone to it too.
It does. It's kind of the way, because I asked my wife about it, and I was like, well, what's it, how do they, I mean, is it anything like the movies? Because I think the movies are just campy and not really all that, entertaining. And she's like, no, it's kind of a mashup between, a high school drama, coming of age girl movie, show or movie, along with all the Addams Family stuff that you'd come to know and love, maybe with Thing or Uncle Fester or whatever. But it's sort of like a high school drama that we've, seen from time to time, but in sort of a dramatic, melodramatic way in a lot of ways. But it was a lot of fun, and I'm actually kind of eager for a second season. So I was curious to see your thoughts on that. I'm glad you're enjoying it, because I thought it was a pleasant surprise for me.
We'll end up finishing it this weekend. We've got Hamilton tomorrow night, so it won't be tomorrow night, but it'll be this weekend.
Well, and I know we've been teasing this, and obviously this is a tonal shift, maybe like Tim Burton's Wednesday, going from the dark Halloweeny of Wednesday to Christmas. We've been talking about it the last few weeks on the show, and today we are going to give some of our favorite picks of our favorite Christmas movies. Now, this could be loosely, I guess loosely based. I know Die Hard is always up for a big debate on whether it's a Christmas movie or not. Other movies probably even more so of a debate, but wanted to share lists of, it could be 5, whatever, or however many movies that you enjoy around the holiday season.
I'm going to beg to differ on something. You say a tonal shift. I'm like, I would argue with you and say that Christmas is one of the darkest holidays out there, because it's if you looking at Christmas movies, most of the good ones are stories of redemption.
Yeah.
So, and to be redeemed, you have to go to a dark place.
Yeah.
So there we go. I think Christmas is, it's one
darker than expected.
Yeah.
Okay.
Without a doubt.
Well, I guarantee that we're probably going to have a little bit of overlap. I know you and I differ on a lot of Christmas movies, but I would venture to guess we'll have at least 1 or 2 that probably overlap each other's, favorite lists. So what, we can go back and forth, or I can go first and give you my whole list, or you can give me your whole list. What would you prefer?
How many are we doing?
I have 5. I put down like my 5 kind of go-tos.
Okay. Let's go with 5.
Okay.
And you can go first.
Okay. You want me to go through my entire list?
Sure. Why not?
Okay. So at number 5, I have Die Hard. Probably number 5 more so because to me, it's sort of a fringy Christmas movie. It is a Christmas movie, but
absolutely.
I kind of tried to stick to Christmas, because if I didn't, then I would probably want to put like Martin McDonagh's In Bruges, which is set around Christmas, even though it's not all that Christmassy. But it was such a fun movie that I just want to put it on every list I can because I love In Bruges so much. But Die Hard does make the cut for me. At number 4, I have sort of one that is sort of under the radar, I think. Arthur Christmas, an animated movie, very underrated. My wife and I watched it a couple of weeks ago as we kind of kicked off our Christmas viewing season. So Arthur Christmas kind of tells the story of this family of Santa Clauses that range from retired to semi-retired to the young kids getting ready to take over the Christmas delivery operation. I think it's along with having some fun gags and all the heart that you would expect. It also has themes of aging and sort of being left behind, if you will, in sort of the rat race, and in this case of being Santa Claus. So that's my number 4. Number 3, this is number 2 and 3 you're going to hate. But number 3, I've got Christmas Vacation. Wife and I just watched it last week. It's still a good standby, fun. Yeah, some of it might not hold up as well as it did maybe the first time you watched it, or maybe it never held up. But I still kind of enjoy having that annual tradition of watching it at least once or twice.
That's 87 minutes you're never going to get back of your life.
I know, George. Well, number 2 is A Christmas Story. And I know, again, we've talked about this. You're not a fan. Although I will say, if you're willing to give it a shot, A Christmas Story Christmas, the HBO Max release that came out last month, is actually pretty solid. And I was surprised that I enjoyed it as much as I did, knowing that sequels are usually terrible. So, but the original, still hard to beat because I grew up with it, watching it and sort of like envisioning myself as Ralphie getting that ultimate Christmas present and just, obsessing over it. So that's kind of why I still gravitate towards it, even though I'm an adult now.
They turned out half of Euclid High School to be extras in that damn film.
What's wrong with that?
Classmates, I'm like, I got tired of hearing about it.
Yeah, okay.
And then, it's I get it. It's one vision of America. I got it. Right. But, nobody I knew grew up wanting a BB gun for Christmas.
No, but it's, the BB gun in some ways is that metaphor for whatever that present was that you pined over, whatever that present was that you'd go to the lengths to, persuade your mom and dad, whether it was safe, not safe, whatever, but that one present where you're like dropping those hints to mom and dad saying, this is what I would love. What do you think? Or whatever. And that's, yeah, I never wanted a BB gun ever in my life. I never got a BB gun, but it's sort of just the magic of that one special gift that everybody has.
Fair enough. And
then number 1, It's a Wonderful Life. I think, you kind of talked about the dark side of Christmas, and kind of doesn't get much darker than this as we, deal with, potential suicide and, some of those thematical elements that may not be super Christmassy, but what can you say about this? It's a classic. It's always been that way. Whether it was, I don't know how it was perceived when it came out.
It was never meant to be a Christmas movie.
Really?
It was never meant to be a Christmas movie.
Yeah.
And it's probably, it's in Capper's top 2. Without a doubt. My other go-to from him is Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
Yeah. Good choice.
Yeah, I get what, it was never meant to be a Christmas movie. It's like the Die Hard of its time.
Right. Well, there was almost some Die Hard, that's for sure. Well, so that's my list. What do you have on yours?
Oh, let's see. Number 5. We're gonna just Die Hard. Yeah. There, and you said it best there. Number 4. The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Okay. Look.
It's brilliant because it can function as a holiday movie on Halloween and Christmas. Yeah. Fantastic songs, captures the spirit of both holidays. and it's positively brilliant. And Tim Burton didn't direct it; Henry
Right.
Selick did. So
Yeah.
give credit where credit is due. It's just a brilliant piece of filmmaking, not just animation, but filmmaking.
It's a gorgeous film. I've never really gotten into the Jack Skellington character. I don't know why, but I just don't really care for it. I don't know.
I won't show you the corner of our house by the Christmas tree. Then
Well, my wife is also a big Jack Skellington fan, and I always like, no, I just not. It's not for me. It's not that I don't like that movie. It's just it's not my cup of tea. Maybe I'm just not. I've never really been a fan of Danny Elfman's musical scores, and he also sings as Skellington in this film. So maybe that's my seated hate for Danny Elfman musical scores. Maybe drives it down a little bit, but it's a solid film, and it's not that I don't like the movie overall. I just never really got into the Jack Skellington character.
fair enough. It's weird. Probably my favorite Christmas story of all time is A Christmas Carol. Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Yet, my favorite version of A Christmas Carol is A Muppet Christmas Carol.
Yep, I know you've talked about that.
Which is strange given the quality of some of the versions out there from Patrick Stewart, Alistair Sim. I don't know if you're familiar with the George C. Scott television version from the late 70s, because my grandparents were still alive. And I watched that. And we lived in an upstairs, downstairs duplex with my grandparents. And I watched that with my grandparents one Sunday. And I thought it was positively brilliant. And I couldn't have been more than 10 or 11. But this is my favorite because, well, second favorite. My second favorite because it mixes the comedy, tasteful comedy,
Right.
the silliness that comes from the Muppets, because you can't do something with the Muppets and not have that, but they strike the right tone. Paul Williams' songs are positively brilliant. And how the hell do they get all that emotion out of a bunch of puppets?
Yeah.
Because it's an emotional trip. And the only, for all intents and purposes, Michael Caine is really the only consistent human presence in the film. You know what I mean? He's there in 90% of the movie, and it's like he's anchoring this, and everybody's playing off of him, and all this emotion is there that comes to the forefront. So, I can't say enough about it. And they restored one of my favorite songs on the Disney Plus version this year.
What's that one?
The Love Is Gone.
Okay. Have you ever seen the Jim Carrey Christmas Carol? I guess you would say it was the copy of the Polar Express, although Robert Zemeckis directed this one too, so copying himself in the stop motion or the motion capture animation.
I have not.
I've always heard good things about it, and I really never checked it out, so I guess that might be something I should check out.
Okay, is that number 3?
I think that was number 3, yeah.
Okay, number 2. And some people would have a debate on this, over this. Love Actually.
Oh yeah, that was also on one of my potential list. Yeah, maker. Yeah, okay.
You want to talk about emotion and different explorations of different kind of love? This movie can be a kick in the gut,
right?
And with so many different storylines, and I forget Curtis Hanson directed.
No, Richard Curtis.
Richard Curtis. Okay, Richard Curtis directed all those different storylines. He brings it all back around to give us an uplifting story.
Yeah.
And if you're not crying by the end, you have no heart. You really don't.
Yeah.
Number 1, My favorite version of A Christmas Carol, Scrooged. Bill Murray. Pathos, comedy, emotion, and even with some of the stuff coming out lately, but still, from what I understand, his monologue at the end was ad-libbed.
Okay.
And it seems so heartfelt, and that's another one that just makes you. It gets the spirit of the season. It gets to the heart of it. So there are my 5.
Okay.
So
I was
people
kind of
out there,
surprised. I thought maybe It's a Wonderful Life would make yours. I was surprised.
I think it was circling around number 6.
Okay. Have you seen I guess, because Netflix has a movie about everything, they actually have an animated Scrooge, A Christmas Carol, that apparently came out this year. So maybe you should check out Netflix this weekend and check out Pinocchio and maybe give another version of Scrooge a chance.
Apple TV did a version of A Christmas Carol, Spirited, with
Will Ferrell and Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah, I'm not normally a fan of Will. He's too much for me, but
okay.
Spirited was thoroughly enjoyable. The music, it's got 2 decent songs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I enjoyed, and actually I'm going to watch it again this weekend over a friend's house.
Okay.
So
I'll have to check it out. I know that's on our list of Christmas movies to watch, so I'll have to check it out.
My wife wants me to shout out Violent Night.
So she was a fan, huh?
Okay. My wife likes dumb action films, so
well, it was a cross between Home Alone and
Die Hard.
Die Hard, right? So it's the best of all worlds there for Christmas movies.
There you go. But it's not going to make my best list. No, it's a good one.
All right. Well, what do you have anything coming up? I know we talked a little bit about Babylon. Is that something we can discuss next week?
I will let you know this weekend.
All right. Maybe if we do decide to record, maybe we can do a favorite things of the year, possibly.
Fair enough. Yeah, Babylon is another 3-hour flick.
Oh yeah, I know. I heard about that. Yeah. So indulgent filmmaking, I guess, is the name of the game.
The Browns play Saturday instead of Sunday, so.
Oh, that's right. Yep. Okay.
There we go.
All right, George. Well, as always, you can read all of George's reviews. I know you can read his Avatar review like I did this morning at beaconjournal.com. George, always a pleasure talking movies with you.
All right, sir.
All right, take care.
Have a good weekend.
You too.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Mooney. Welcome to what is our new Hope Interrupted podcast based on the work from our book, Hope Interrupted, that I co-authored with my good friend Byron McCauley.
Hey, Jennifer, I'm looking forward to this podcast as much as I was looking forward to writing this book with you. We hope to interview some high impact folks as well as have a little fun.
We're going to cover stories of hope. To learn more about our podcast and our book, please visit www.hopeinterrupted.com.